please. Okay, so recording is now on. So as I said earlier, welcome everyone to the weekly call. I will just share my screen in just a second. Okay, which I've now done. So hopefully you can see that. Okay, so a reminder, since we didn't quite finish the sort of running through the agenda for the IETF 120 meeting review last week, I said we would just round that off this week, which we will now do. It was just reflecting before the course started. It's only a week and a half since some of us were in Vancouver. It's like a lot longer ago than that already, but certainly a lovely city to have the privilege of going to. What I'll do, I will just scoot through. I left the slides in from last week. I'm not going to go through all of these again because we've discussed all these. So if you remember last week, we got as far as sort of Wednesday in terms of just reviewing the agenda and some of the highlights from the meeting. So as we did last week, as I'm going through, I'll call out the things that sort of I found of interest, but please, other people that were also in attendance, either in person or remotely in the meeting, do jump in with your observations, either for the same sessions or indeed for others that I wasn't at as I roll through these. So Thursday 25th was the long day in the IETF meeting, with a grand total of 5 distinct sessions. Certainly there was plenty of content. Welcome, Nigel, by the way. Yeah, plenty of content, including, for me, the day kicked off. I went to the network attestation for secure routing, BOF, NASR, which I found a really interesting session. I hadn't had a chance to look at it previously, so I went to it with a very open mind. To summarize, in case you weren't there, basically uses path forwarding to ensure that traffic takes a predetermined route, and gives you the ability to actually sort of validate that the route did in fact follow that, the traffic did in fact follow that route, specifying both the route, all the links, and all the hardware. So you could specify all of that and be confident in looking at the traffic that was the route it followed. It hadn't taken diversion and gone through some unauthorized sort of legs or some unauthorized equipment. So depending on your point of view, for some use cases, it gives you that sort of if it's very sensitive traffic, it means that you can be absolutely sure that it's got from point to point, so without being tampered with. And one of the use cases that came up was potentially for things like digital sovereignty. If you didn't want certain traffic to leave to leave a sort of a geography, you could be confident that it stayed within that geography, rather than, if you like, just letting the internet determine how it got from point to point, without being overly worried about the route that it took. So if you like, that will be the positive side. On the downside, and various people made this point on the mic, it arguably increases the brittleness of the internet, because you lose that inherent resilience of if you like, the underlying design of the internet, of not having predetermined routes, because you're actually hardwiring routing in, and you could potentially exclude certain hardware. If you wish, if you don't like a particular vendor, you could use this to exclude the hardware. Or, as I think somebody made a point during the workshop, I can't remember if it's in the chat or on the mic, you could force traffic to go through a national filtering, etc. So there were certainly aspects of it which got some criticism. And I think at the end, it certainly didn't have rough consensus to proceed. So it'd be interesting to see whether and how it comes back for a second BOF in Dublin. I think Deb, the security AD who sat in on the session, she indicated she felt there was a lot more discussion needed to happen on the mailing list, given the level of resistance from those people sort of present on the mic and in the chat to the use cases that were being sort of presented. I mean, it wasn't uniformly negative, but I felt like the majority of comments that I sort of noted were negative. So on balance, it felt like it's going to be a struggle to see this proceed very far, but you never know. See how things happen over the next few months on the mailing list. I'll just pause there. I don't know if anybody else attended that session and maybe had a different, more positive take on it. Give you a chance to jump in if you did. Or either just unmute and talk, or pop something in the chat if that's easier. Yeah, if you did. I'll give you a second or two to do that, just in case. Seeing any typing, and no one's unmuted, so I assume possibly not. But if you weren't there, I'd certainly say it's well worth your while watching the recording if you have the opportunity. Second session of Thursday, I went to the IAB Open meeting. Three things I noted from the agenda. I think there were a couple of others, but these are the three that I noted. Was the morgue liaison update from Barry Lieber. I mentioned that principally because I know there have been some comments from various people I've spoken to from recent previous meetings who felt that the IB wasn't taking its liaison sort of responsibilities especially seriously. And it felt this time round that that was changing, perhaps with a changing chairmanship of the IAB. Maybe, I don't know if that's had anything to do with it, but there are a few things where it came up, this being an example where it felt like it was being sort of elevated in its importance versus previously. So that was the main reason I just called out that being on the agenda, was more, it seemed to signify a difference of approach from the IB that has been of late to its liaison responsibilities. In terms of other things, I'll give a bit more detail on these in a moment, but Mark Nottingham talked about the AI control workshop game that's planned for, I think, September. So it gave some additional context to that, and Wes Hardacre did the same for the proposed NEMOPS workshop, both of which being sponsored by the AIB. And if I just change slide, I'll put a couple more bits of information on each of those. So the AI control, this is more to see if there's interest in developing a mechanism to provide the opt-out for AI, of content for AI, see what the use cases there are for that, what the requirements may be, etc. So very much find a mechanism to enforce the choice to opt out. And as it says on the screen, not to look at technical enforcement mechanisms. That's out of scope for the purposes of this activity. And then by contrast, the NEMOPS, next area of network management operations. I Who knew this? I certainly didn't, but apparently there was a sort of similar discussion in 2002. So this is really following up from that to really see what new requirements there may be. Really get more discussion between network operators and sort of protocol engineers, and then make some recommendations to the community. I sort of highlighted this partly because it feels like there's more effort to take seriously the sort of the network management community, and understand perhaps some of the challenges, particularly I think some of those caused by sort of end-to-end encryption, the introduction of encryption in protocols, etc., etc., and perhaps to try and understand more, or put a greater focus on the ops side of the equation. And it felt to me that was also being signalled in Brisbane, so more of the same. So personally, that's a good thing, but clearly it needs people with network management responsibilities to engage, put forward papers, etc., as well as those more involved in on the protocol engineering side. So I think these are both sort of useful and interesting initiatives. Hopefully there will be some traction. I think the deadline's just passed. I think it was the 2nd, so Friday, for the AI control inputs. I think it's a little bit, I think again, it might be September. I think I should put that on the slide. The deadline for inputs for the NEMOPS workshop, that certainly hasn't passed. So if that is of interest, you have time to put things forward for that. Again, I'll just pause there in case anyone had anything else. Sorry, I didn't mean to skip over the slide. Apologies. Anything else to add on either the IAB Open or anything else from the first 2 sessions on Thursday? Not necessarily those that I've just covered. And again, just unmute and sort of speak or pop something in the chat if that's easier. I'll give you a few seconds to do that, otherwise I'll move on. I'm not seeing anything, so I'll assume not, and we'll move on. Okay, session 3, I went to the ADD working group, and you'll see on the slide on the screen, I've sort of put in some of the key things that were covered. So Tommy Jensen was quite busy with a number of presentations, as you can see, which was good. The one I mentioned though was the bottom one there. So Dan Wing gave a presentation on behalf of the co-authors of encrypted DNS and CPE devices, and how sort of a mechanism to support encrypted DNS within CPE. There was some discussion whether the ADD working group was the right place for that, although I don't recall anyone coming up with a better place for it. But I think Dan was tasked to sort of share the draft elsewhere. So I think the jury's out whether it's something that ADD will continue with or not. But it does, in my opinion, solve an important problem. So it's work that needs to be done somewhere. The question is whether the ADD is the right place. Session 4, I didn't end up going to a workshop. I had planned to go to SPICE, but I then picked up some actions during session 3. So I was elsewhere whilst session 4 ran, talking to some of the ADs and working group chairs. So didn't get to go to SPICE, so I don't know how that progressed. So again, I just pause momentarily and see. Don't know if anyone else went to Spice and has anything to say about that, or indeed any of the other um, working groups that were held during sessions 3 or 4 on Thursday. You can just unmute if you did, and you can jump in if you've got anything to add. Not looking like it. So in which case, I'll just skip over to session 5. DNS Ops sort of rounded out the second of its 2 sessions for the week. As always, with plenty on the agenda, which it successfully completed. Otherwise, I would have gone either to a high or potentially part 2 of Spice, but chose to go to DNS Ops. So there's nothing really jumped out at me that was especially noteworthy, which isn't to say it wasn't interesting, but from the DNS Ops discussion. And that was it for me for Friday, for Thursday. So I would seamlessly roll into Friday. I went to the Independent Stream Open meeting, which in my view was really interesting. It was principally to sort of share how the independent sort of submissions editor works, how that whole stream works. So partly about sort of knowledge sharing, but also then just initiating a discussion on a range of issues at the mic, such as whether it was appropriate for publications that go through the independent stream to be given RFC numbers, and indeed that then triggered a discussion whether RFCs should be restricted only to the IETF stream and not to, for example, IAB documents or IRTF documents. Feels like it's a bit late in the day for that, but that certainly came up on the mic. And also another topic which came up on the mic, which also been touched on earlier in the week in the TLS working group, was about country-specific post-quantum. There were a number of questions at the mic from memory. I think they were exclusively from members of the Chinese tech community wanting to know whether and how their preferred post-quantum techniques could be sort of given the sort of stamp of approval through the IETF. And so that definitely came up. I think there were concerns that I think sort of US sort of preferred options through NIST were overly weighted by the IETF, and other country-specific sort of techniques ought to also be given airtime and approval. And there was a bit of discussion about sort of whether the mechanisms within sort of China were sufficiently open to peer review. I suspect this will come back. This topic will come back at the next meeting as well, because there was obviously a strength of feeling there. But other than that, I thought it was a really interesting session, very useful for Elliot to sort of share the process and how he administers it through the independent submission for independent submissions. Some view that it was a bit loose and not tightly specified. My take on it was that was a feature, not a bug. I said as much on the mic, and it'd be a mistake to try and make it overly prescriptive as a process, but others may feel differently to that. And although there were other sessions, as you can see in finally sessions 2 and then finally in 3, those were the last 2 so that was the last one that I went to of the sessions on the agenda. So again, I'll pause there and see if anyone else got any other observations either from that session or indeed others from the Thursday and Friday. Or indeed anything else we didn't cover last week. Things like Mimi, for example, I believe that had two working group sessions, but I didn't manage to get to those. I'm sure there were various other topics. So anything else that anyone wants to add from anything from the IETF meeting agenda that you think is noteworthy? Just before I give a second or two to speak, otherwise I'll assume that you don't. Okay, it's looking like not. So I'll assume not. So well, okay. Well, that's it then for IETF. I won't go through the side meetings. The only one I managed to make was the on the Thursday, ironically. So after those 5 sessions, the Public Interest Technology Group, which was a good discussion. But there were various others through the week. Again, just to pause in case anyone else was a bit more diligent with side meetings and attended any and thinks any were worthy of mention. And if not, I'll continue. Okay, well let's move on then. I hope that was useful. I think there's definitely some sessions well worth catching up with on or catching up with the recordings of if you weren't able to make them. So hopefully it's signposted a handful of those at least. Okay, just looking at the news headlines from the last week, which those of you on the mailing list would have had in your inbox sort of late morning UK time, in fact, very early afternoon, come to think about it, UK time, so a bit later than normal today. If you're not on the mailing list and want to be, just ping me an email and I'll happily add you. The thing that stood out, there was quite a lot of mention of the so-called sitting ducks DNS attack, based on research from Infoblox and Eclipsium. Lovely name, I hadn't come across Eclipsium previously. And as you'll see from the summary on the slide, they reckon that malicious actors have already used this to hijack over 35,000 domains and believe that there's over 1 million that could be hijacked every day using the same technique. So Bleeping Computer had an interesting article, sort of covered it, but obviously there's more detail from Infoblox, and separately Vacara also published a post on it with their thoughts, and there were others. That's just sort of 3 of quite a few others. So if you're not caught up with the Sitting Ducks DNS attack, I think that will be a good use of your time. There also continues to be follow-up on the CrowdStrike incident. Akamai put an interesting piece out, and dare I say it, Jason even did as well. So Josh, I don't want to put Jason on the slide, that confused me. So yeah, I think I saw it on social media this morning, Josh. So there's a good amount of analysis out there. No doubt that will continue. Definitely worth a look. There's also an update from Whalebone on the sort of continuing progress with the DNS for EU initiative. That's the open resolver that's being part funded by the European Commission to get it established as a sort of a alternative to the open resolvers, mainly not exclusively operated by US entities. I know if John Tobler on the call, he would rightly remind me that Quad9 is now based in Switzerland as another European one, but I think DNS3U will be the only sort of large scale one based in the within the EU specifically. Finally, on this slide, Jeff Houston put out a useful summary of all the various DNS topics that were covered during the IETF meeting. So, as always, a thorough write-up from Jeff on that, which is well worth your time taking a look at, just in case there's anything that you'd overlooked. I probably won't go through all of these as well, but the one on the top, since we've had a number of discussions about DNSSEC and whether it's really stalled, whether it's going anywhere, whether it's the right solution, whether it's fit for purpose, etc. Echo, the Internet Industry Group, has launched a survey, quite a short one to fill in. So be interested to see what analysis they get from that. But that probably quite timely to do that. And then towards the bottom of the slide, the DNS Research Federation, their NIS2 tracker, has picked up some progress with legislation that's going before the parliaments in Latvia, Austria, and Germany and Italy, respectively. So look at their look at their NIS2 tracker for more detail. And finally, if those of you interested more on the policy side, the Internet Governance Forum, which takes place in Riyadh at the end of this year, registration for that's just opened. So if you're interested in attending, you can register. There's no cost to register, but if you want to attend, you do need to have done that. And there's a whole bunch of other things, which I won't go through detail, but I'll maybe mention the one at the top of the list there. Mark Nottingham has published a blog on APNIC, openness in internet standards, necessary but insufficient. So definitely worth a look and a read to get Mark's thoughts on that. And then top of the second screen, if you want to see how the Olympics has impacted on internet traffic, Cloudflare have done some initial measurements, which they published within the last few days. Okay, in terms of calls for papers and other things with looming deadlines, the Open Forum Academy Symposium's call for proposals has got a deadline of the 7th, so you've got a couple more days if you're planning to submit any papers for that. And then later on this month, call for presentations for the RIPE 89 meeting, deadline's the 23rd. And then the 26th of August for the ICANN DNS Symposium, call for presentations. So you've got a few more weeks for those two, but the Open Forum Academy Symposium is the one that's most imminent. Okay, finally, no major events running this month, right up to the end of the month when APNIC 58 kicks off in Wellington on 30th of August. And then a bit of a gap in events that I've sort of picked up until towards the end of September, when you got this the ICANN DNS Symposium week, running from the Monday through Thursday in Santa Marta in Colombia, with both the symposium itself, an OARC Community Day, and a couple of other things as well. So quite an interesting set of topics. Oh, sorry, just knocked my mouse. So hopefully I'll see some of you there. That should be quite a good event and a nice venue. And then business as usual from that point on. Plenty of events, conferences through October, November, taking us up to the year end. And then finally, for me, in terms of the call. Actually, I should have deleted that first one. So next week we got DNS security. Don't talk to strangers with Adam Networks. That's sort of an alternative to the zero trust DNS approach from Microsoft. So that was interesting to see that there's something else out there. That should be an interesting session, and then various other things already lined up through certainly to October, I think possibly even later than that, but there's sort of plenty of material. But if anyone's got anything else you want to discuss, just let me know, and I'll happily add you to the to the schedule. Find a slot. There's one at the end of this month. Otherwise, we can look later in the year. I think that's it from me. So just really to complete the task of the roundup. See, Simon, you've got your hand raised. Hopefully, you haven't had it raised for too long, and I haven't missed it. So, did you want to come in with something? We need to unmute first. Looks like you got muted. Try again, Simon.
Sorry, I have managed to mute myself. I hadn't seen the thing that the host would like to record the meeting, which was therefore blocking me from unmuting. So I'm madly hitting the unmute button, and then eventually saw the logo that he wanted to record me as well. Just a quick one. As I guess you know, the 26th is a bank holiday in England and Wales in the UK. So you might not want to hold a meeting on that case on that day. You might be that enthusiastic you want to work on a bank holiday.
Well, you never know. There might be others out there that want to have a chat. We'll see. But yes, thank you for the reminder. That had slipped my mind. So that's useful to know. Yes, indeed. Public holiday in the UK on the last Monday of August for whatever reason. But yeah, okay. Thank you for highlighting that. And I can see, Nigel, there's a DNS Summit in London on the 20th to 22nd of August. Are you able to elaborate at all on that?
Well, good afternoon, Andrew. It's I think this is the third incarnation. It's about mainly about domain trading, domain selling, but it branches out into more sort of domain issues in general. Touches on some of I can put a link, or not in this chat, but I can circulate a link when I'm sort of sitting down somewhere where I can do it. But yeah, it's quite good fun, so to speak.
Okay. All right. Well, I completely missed that, so thank you for flagging that. Yeah, if you ping me an email, if you have a moment, Nigel, with a link to it, I'll put that in with the notes.
Yeah, of course. It'd be a pleasure, sir.
Perfect. Thank you for that. That's appreciated. And I should say, by the way, if anyone's got anything else you want to add to the list of events, again, just drop me a line. I'll happily add other things to it in the way that Nigel was just highlighted with the DNS Summit on the 20th to 22nd of August in London, which I was going to say, who knew? Well, I clearly didn't. So probably everybody else on the call did, but there you are. Okay. Is there anything else that anyone else wants to raise on the call this week? Because now is definitely your chance if there is any sort of burning topic that you wanted to share.
Just a quick one, Andrew. This is Dan Wing. We have an update coming out soon on the encrypted sessions to CPE, which we presented in ADD. It's gone up there twice. Kind of a frustrating problem to solve for CPE that are especially behind NATs and can't do ACME. And even if you can do ACME and you want to deploy millions of these things, you're nearly doubling what Let's Encrypt or DigiCert or whoever have been issuing for certificates in the past. Which is causes trauma, let's say. And then, of course, everyone likes to do star certificates nowadays and have them renew frequently. So it's an ongoing hit against those CAs. So we're trying to invent and discuss and document different ways of solving the problem and figure out how to go forward. It's a very acute problem for ADD because we want to have encrypted sessions to the local CPE DNS that's doing caching and serving .local and doing split horizon DNS and all the other fun stuff that we all like to do in those CPE. And then it also touches on SMB and IPP and other services that you want to run in the home to your NAS and to your printers and all that. And they all kind of would benefit from the same solution, whatever that same solution ends up being. So we'll be talking about that more actively going forward. I expect we have updates on our GitHub. I was just editing some more this morning that we'll be publishing soon as an updated internet draft.
Excellent. And I mean, I mentioned that when we were talking about the ADD session just now. My recollection was that other than tasking you with talking to some other possibly interested groups within the ITF, it didn't seem clear what the right venue was
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah, it's not clear at all to me.
Where?
Yeah, it's important to ADD, but it's important elsewhere. We need to solve the problem for ADD. We could argue we don't need to solve the problem for printers and for NAS and for file sharing on Windows boxes and Macs and just kind of let them do whatever they're doing. But IETF has never published guidance on what they should be doing. We've just been hoping that everyone figures this shit out. So that would be kind of cool if we documented what that best current practice is, or the worst current practice, or some combination of those things, to get all the vendors to do the same thing, whatever that same thing is, because there's probably 6 or 7 ways of solving it, and if you get a multi-vendor solution of Epson printers and Synology NAS in your house, you now have 2 or 3 different solutions, and you need to handle all those, and it's a pain in the butt and confusing and whatever. So yeah, we'd like to solve that all in the same way, ideally. But again, it's a problem for ADD. So we are keeping this in ADD for now until it demonstrates itself as a significant enough problem and with some solutions. So there is, that there is a solution space that we can get a different venue or a better venue or something like that, because it's we have a lot of the right people in the ADD working group, but we need to get more security AD review and understanding of the problem than we get in ADD, to be honest, and the TLS expertise as well.
Are you thinking possibly of having a side meeting or something like that in Dublin?
Yeah, I expect so. Mohammed, who's interested in solving this problem and is one of the co-authors, will be there in Dublin, and we will probably organize something then.
Yeah, because for what it's worth, I think you're right. It's a problem that needs to be solved. The fact that there isn't exactly the right venue in the IETF setup doesn't mean that it shouldn't still be solved. So hopefully.
I always end up working on these problems, so it's great. Good times.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit like split horizon in that sense, isn't it? It doesn't sit neatly in any one place.
Yeah.
Well, still, it keeps things interesting for you and your co-author. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you for that, and I guess we're sort of look forward to some further updates between now and the Dublin meeting, which is not so far away.
All right, sounds good.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else with anything else you wanted to sort of mention? Now's a good chance if you do. Seeing anyone typing, I don't think. Doesn't look like anyone's unmuted. I'll give you another couple of seconds, otherwise I'll assume not. No, I think not. Okay, well, I hope that was Useful if anyone has a sort of sudden recollection of something else that came up in the IETF meeting that we've not covered. Feel free to ping me a note, and I'll happily add it to the notes with the link to the recording retrospectively, if that's useful. Other than that, slightly shorter call than last week, which is no bad thing because we were right up against the time last week. So hope you have a fantastic week. As always, look out my office window. The sun's shining, looks like a nice day. Hope it is where you are. Enjoy the rest of the week. Maybe watch the Olympics if that's your thing, and look forward to catching up the same time next week when we have our friends from Adam Networks on the call to share their learnings on Don't Talk to Strangers. So look forward to seeing you all then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.